And now, the host of Quirks of Israel, Reverend Peter Faust.
Everyone, hello. Oh, so good to be here. Episode 8, we've made it. Good to see you. I see you still got the afro. Love it. Keep it up. Keep it up. Oh, wonderful. Security, take out that man right over there. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Oh, this is nice. Nice being back. I love my desk. Look at this. Look at this. Okay. All right. Welcome to episode 8 of the Quirks of Israel. I think that deserves an applause. Okay, that's a long applause. All right. Today's episode is called Israel, a Quirky Place, Part 2, Driving and Sticking Together. Okay, I think that deserves another applause. This is a series here. We got Part 2. Okay, ready? I would describe driving in Israel as organized chaos. It's busy, quick. You have scooters whipping in and out of the traffic, sometimes driving on the shoulder or a little detour on the sidewalk. The air is filled with honking or hand gestures on narrow streets, or possibly any street for that matter. You have congestion like any busy city, of course, but there's this little trick in Israel where people will pretty much force their way into traffic by pushing out their bumper a little at a time until you, the other driver, have no choice but to stop or crash into them. The hilarious thing is the person who inches out pretends they don't see you, and that it was all some innocent traffic outcome where they had no clue a car was there. But always remember, you only let one car in, and then you quickly speed up to prevent all the other cars from butting in as well. Then you have egged buses. I didn't say eggs, I said egged buses, and taxis to grapple with as everyone careens forward in a comet-hurtling style. Now, driving in Israel can intimidate many people, tourists or even Jewish people who make Aliyah and have lived there for years. There is an entertaining side to it all, but there is one Hebrew word that sums it up: balagan, organized chaos. But once you figure it all out and drive like an Israeli, everything falls into place, and pretty soon you'll whip through a roundabout like an expert Jerusalemite. Okay. So, here are some of the important rules for you if you travel to Israel and desire and dare to hire a car from Hertz, Avis, Budget, Eldan, or any other car hiring business. Rule number 1, the horn is your best friend. Don't abuse the relationship and go stark raving mad, but communicate with your horn. Love your horn. Respect your horn. You can throw in a few gentle, not rude gestures, like, hey, like this kind of thing, and you'll be driving like a pro. I saw a friend once on the sidewalk while I was driving in Jerusalem, and I honked at him to get his attention. But you know what? He just ignored me and kept walking. Probably because he wasn't in a car, or else maybe he wasn't my friend, my real friend at all. But anyway, I mean, the people in the car next to me looked at me like, "What's your problem, my friend?" But it was pointless trying to get my friend's attention, you see, okay, because everybody's honking. So now in Canada, someone honks and everyone is looking. People on the sidewalk, the hot dog stand guy, people in cars, window cleaners on skyscrapers, conference meetings are halted so people can look out their windows. I mean, everybody. Everyone wants to see why someone dared honk, and if there's going to be a bit of road rage or some poor soul freaking out. But in Israel, honking is communicating, and much of the time it's not out of a sense of aggression or rudeness. I've had to honk one time at a police officer who was having a pleasant conversation with a friend in another car at a green light, holding up traffic. Now, did I hesitate before I honked? Absolutely. But then I remembered it's Israel. So I gave him a nice little gentle kind of beep beep like that and waved at his annoyed gesture back to me. Yeah, but you know what? He caught my drift and carried on through the intersection. No harm done. Rule number 2. Be assertive with the zipper. No, I'm not talking about the zipper on your jeans or your trousers. This is the method where drivers let each other in so that traffic at least crawls and doesn't get stagnant. In Israel, you must be assertive and inch forward into traffic. Don't be afraid. I'm not recommending you pull some crazy Evel Knievel stunt in traffic on Highway 2 or Highway 6, Route 431 or the Begin, but on King George or Agrippa's, entering from a side street on Emek Raphaim or Hauman Street, where our Jerusalem Assistance Center is located, you can look for an opening and take it. Although it's important you judge the speed of the cars coming at you and try to make sure the driver sees you, even though he might pretend he doesn't. There's a lot of complex communication that happens just entering from a side street onto a busy road. But it's essential or you'll never get anywhere. This is life in Israel. Most drivers aren't trying to be rude, nor are they part of some plot to ruin your day. This is just how people in Israel get around. The unwritten rules of the road. Number 3, never eat a falafel while driving through a roundabout. One day in 2004, while I was a volunteer in the home repair program of Bridges for Peace, I was entering the Jerusalem Assistance Center and gazing out at the busy street of Hauman, I saw a small gray car, clearly out of control, whip into the roundabout near the side of our building. Both driver and passenger were transfixed into a state of horror upon their faces. I'll try to reenact it, kind of like this. Like you kind of see it coming, but not kind of like that. It's like this, okay? And as they saw their impending doom coming to them, okay? So this is very dramatic. On a humorous side, I noticed the driver struggling to eat his falafel, which was going very poorly, leading to the terrible outcome before them as they catapulted out of the circle, up on the sidewalk, and smashed into a stone wall that numerous hired international Thai workers had been constructing over some weeks. Part of the wall naturally crumbled, kind of like a mini Jericho, and the Thai workers gazed on with exasperated stares as the driver and passenger climbed out of their damaged car. Relieved they were okay, I then watched, to my amazement, my utter amazement, as the driver poked his head back into the crushed car and emerged with his half-eaten mangled falafel and continued to finish his lunch. Falafels can be messy, and it's best to eat them from a stationary position. Let's hear it for falafels, okay? And stationary positions. Remember, eat your falafel from a stationary position. Okay. Now, let's switch gears and chat about sticking together. This is a unique, quirky part of Israeli community and society. Israelis tend to really stick together. I mostly chalk this up to the Jewish people being a people of history, a tight-knit community connected by shared faith, even though this has a wide variety of expression, as well as being a people who've experienced many traumas in their past, the most recent, the horrific years of the Holocaust. One of the foundational reasons for Israel's rebirth was to be a Jewish state where Jews could live in safety as Jews and be responsible for their survival and defense and not at the mercy of foreign governments. Not only is the land of Israel the ancestral homeland of the Jewish people, but reconstituting the nation, having the IDF, establishing law and a way of life for Israel brings with it sovereignty that acts like an umbrella to protect a people who have been hounded for centuries, expelled from nations, murdered through pogroms and the Shoah, regularly experiencing anti-Semitism, and not always being able to count on the governments in power within the nations they lived in coming to their defense and protecting them. Some of the most violent anti-Semitism, like Jew hatred, was state-sponsored. So Israel is unique. That's all I can explain it as. It's unique as a Jewish state. It's the only Jewish state in the world. And although there are many non-Jews who live there, and they are also protected under Israeli law. But Jewish history and the reality of modern-day Israel has produced a people who stick together. Looking beyond 4,000 years of Jewish history, the good, the bad, and the ugly, this characteristic of sticking together is played out in a unique, quirky, and often tender way for the outside onlooker. Kind of a sociological or anthropological, that's a tongue twister there, like an observation, really. Allow me to share a few short examples, okay? Let's give it up to examples and me trying to say words today. All right. One day, my wife and I were staying in a lovely flat in Netanya, and we decided to go down to the beach early in the morning. We got ready, grabbed some snacks and drinks, and stepped out into the glorious sunshine with the Mediterranean breeze rushing through the palm fronds, the beach cats eyeing us for tuna, and the street very quiet. We descended down a footpath, interspersed by stairs, and walked across the beautiful sand to the sound of crashing blue waves. We found a spot on the deserted beach, laid out our towel, opened a small umbrella we had brought, and stretched out to take in some sun rays before going for a swim. A few minutes later, an Israeli family emerged onto the empty beach, save for the two of us. They naturally scanned the beach that was before them for a few seconds, and then trotting across the sand, laid their towels down about 6 feet from us. They smiled, said Boker Tov, good morning, and laid down next to us. I smirked at my wife, noticing the quirky nature of what just happened. As the morning wore on, more families came upon the beach, and one by one they all joined us as the beach filled out with sun, bathers, and swimmers. One more example. One evening, two of my mates and I had purchased tickets to go see The Great Gatsby, which was playing at one of the cinemas in Jerusalem. We arrived early, purchased our popcorn, and made our way into a dimmed cinema. The screen was blank, and not a soul sat in any of the couple hundred seats before us. Our tickets were for the middle section, which if you've gone to any film in a Famous Players or a Landmark cinema, the middle section is always the best view and sound quality, at least according to me. We found our seats and waited, 3 lost souls swallowed up by the darkness, alone in the large cinema, until we heard some hushed whispers coming down the aisle. We turned and watched the dark shapes of 2 elderly ladies passing row after row of chairs. You could hear them rambling on in Hebrew and checking their tickets as they made their way closer to the middle section we sat in. Now, if you've guessed it, you've guessed correctly. The ladies halted before our row, inspected their tickets once more, and then proceeded down our row, checking the numbers on each chair. They halted before us, and the first lady indicated to my friend, who is sitting on my left, that he was actually sitting in the elderly woman's reserved seat, according to her ticket. She showed him the proof, my friend grumbling and gesturing to the empty cinema, but she was correct. He was sitting in her seat. So with more grumbling and head shaking, my friend rose to his feet, squeezed past us, and sat on the other side of my friend to my right. The elderly ladies were pleased and sat next to us. So there I was, one of 5 people in a vast cinema watching The Great Gatsby as the elderly ladies snored next to us. Israel is quirky. Join me on episode 9 of the Quirks of Israel as I take you through funny experiences in Israel, part 1, swimming in Tel Aviv. Cheers and shalom.